Okay, so once that's done, now it really is just a matter of putting it all back together again. As I said, that O-ring was very dry, so I'm actually going to put a silicon-based lubricant onto that. Now don't put Vaseline on an O-ring, it actually stretches O-rings, but we'll put a little bit of silicon-based lubricant onto there so that that's going to slide back on and seal. That's a weatherproof seal, keeping all the water out. Then we'll put the motor back on and start to put things back together. Replace the clips. Bolts on both sides were tight, even more so on the second side. That's these little guys here. I've gone for a bigger 13mm ring spanner, so it has the ring end on it like that. There's just no way of getting around the fact that good tools make all the difference in the world. You see that even if I use the ring on the combination, you see the leverage difference. If I put that there, it's so much longer, this ring spanner, and it's able to get it down, whereas that was, I could do it with that, but it was a lot harder work and a lot more painful. So just don't be deceived, that's all. These bolts are tight, you're gonna need some good tools to get them off. This goes back on, and remembering that the motor was at the top when we took it off, so that just, there we go, beautiful, slides back into place. Okay, so you've got to get this bracket back on as well, so make sure you put that bracket back in place like that, so the plug's coming up to the top, then put your bolts in and then do it up. Okay, so here's the brakes. Now here's the part number. If any of you want to pause the video and have a look at that, I've gone for genuine BMW parts. They were not that much more expensive, but you'll have to make that call for yourself. Now inside the box we get a couple of sets, and it also comes, you'll see, with new bolts and new clips to put all this up. So these bolts here that we took out can be replaced. That's with the original BMW kit. I doubt you'll get the bolts with anything else. Now the other thing to notice is that these, you've got here brake pads with the wide pins on one and narrow pins. If you compare them, see, I'm talking about these pins here, narrow here, wide there. If you look at your old pads, the one that had the piston pressing on it is really obvious. That was wide, so that it goes on the piston side, and the narrow one has got your caliper marks on it. So the wide one goes to the piston, and the narrow one goes to the caliper. So we clip these clips out, and they are identical. Okay, so we gave that a spray out with some brake cleaner, and then we're putting on these new clips. They're in much better condition. What I'm noticing also, there's like a plastic or a rubber backing on these genuine BMW ones. That's going to help with brake squeal and vibration and noise and all the rest of it. So that's a good thing. You'll notice that there's little locating clips here on these. That's so it lines up in the right place and doesn't rub on the brake. So you get it not only over this big edge here, but you've also got to line up this little edge. And now the calipers on this side, bigger pins gap went on the inside. And if you have a look at this stage, the difference between the old brake pads, you can see the amount of meat that's on them. It's the brake pad, this is what's left of this one, and that's what's supposed to be on there. You see they've got this big edge here, which is all worn away on this guy. And then the other brake pad here, you can see this one a lot better. Just put it on at a bit of an angle, like that, and slide it in. Okay, so now we've screwed the motor back on. We've got the clip back in place, everything's in place. The electrical can go back in. You make sure that clicks. There you go, you hear that little dull click, so you know it's held in place. And then you get out your new bolts, and before we go dropping any, we'll lose the old bolts over there. It's just a matter of lining it up, top. There we go, there's one. And then it's a matter of your two spanners, 15mm to hold it on there, and a 13mm on the back, and doing it up. Now again, you're going to be going in the normal undo direction because you're around the other way. Rather than doing one up super tight and then going to the other, I'm going to spin this right up until it comes just to touch, to tight. There we go, like that. And then we move down to the bottom one and do exactly the same thing, and then pull them up tight. Now again, these are brakes, so they need to be spec. You need to look up the specs, you look up the specs, but with brakes it's BT. which in Mark's revision tutorials language is bloody tight. The brakes, suspension, all these things, you've got to pull them up really, really hard and nice and tight. Okay, so now when it comes to nimming these up tight, keep this one up. If it drops down too low, it'll get jammed in. You won't be able to get it out, so you need to be able to keep it so you can get it out. And then this guy, remember you're pushing down to do it up. So really give it a nice and tight like that, top and bottom. And that's it, that brake's on. Now you'll see it's loose, it's not holding, it's not calipered up. What we can actually do is just put on the handbrake, and that will wind that up and press the caliper in. And also before you drive anywhere, just give your foot a pump on the brake and make sure that it pumps up nice and tight. And then when you go for a drive, you just do the normal bedding in procedure. And basically just take it for a bit of a drive, get that initial edge, make sure that the rear brakes you can feel them, that the car's braking properly. So it's a test drive for starters, but also the bedding in. What you don't want is any big, long driving. Like you live somewhere at the top of a hill, you don't bed your brakes in by putting the brake on and then leaving it on all the way down a big hill. You just need some shorter, gentle brake applications to start with, becoming stronger, stronger, stronger. I'm sure you can find a video on how to bed in brakes, but that's the basics of it. It doesn't have to be that long, but then for a good week, just be very much looking after your brakes. Don't do big, long braking periods. Brake for a little bit, let them off, brake for a little bit, let them off, because there's going to be a lot of dust come out initially. Just as I've not replaced this rotor because it doesn't need it. There's not a big lip on here, but just as the face of the new brake pad is going to have to become the same shape as the disc that's in here. So those two will wear together. So the wheel is back on, car's back down on the ground. Before you take the wheel chocks away, you need to come and put your handbrake on. Now have a listen to this. Sounded like two went on, didn't it? The first one was what normally happens on the side that was already adjusted. The second one, that nut that we undid with the big Torx 45, was winding itself back in again. So and then is the second one. If you've done both, then it'll just take the longer time to wind in. But that's it. That's adjusted. Your brake calipers back up now, and they're ready for your test drive. Okay, so there you go. I've gone and put the electric handbrake on, and that little cog that we wound all the way out, wound all the way in, and that's now tight. It's up against the brake. And then I've let the handbrake off, go and do the other side now. And particularly, I'm going to show you just in here, there's a wire. Once we get that assembly off, we're going to, that's the brake sensor wire, and on mine it needs to be replaced because it went down so far that it tripped. We're going to replace that brake sensor wire, which runs up here. I'll show you that on the other side. Now we're on the other side of the car, and this one has brake sensor, and that's the part that needs to be replaced. Now it's a great big long wire on the F25. It attaches in there. You can see it goes into the top of the brake pad. Now you can actually just grab a pair of pliers and pull that out, but as you see, you come along, it's just a press fit like that, all the way along into the back here, up here again. It's a press fit along here, along there, and then it goes up into that compartment up there. So once I've got the brake shoes switched out, I'll show you that connection. But obviously first you got to pull this one out.